This is the Brandon Smith Show, and of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of the show is one singular thing, and that is to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. And so today, we are going to talk about what strategic principles and strategy can teach us in 2018 on how we can live a life a little more free from dysfunction. I love this topic because I'm a strategy geek. And I love to be able to kind of get up to speed on the latest and greatest thinking, and I don't often get a chance to do that. So, and the lazy way of doing it is I just bring on really smart people to talk to me about it. So I don't have to actually have to read anything. You can just have someone else tell me about it.
The best way.
So my really smart person today is my buddy and friend and colleague and mentor and all these good things, John Kim. And John's been on the show before. Some of you who have been longtime listeners and followers will remember John. So John teaches strategy at Goizueta Business School at Emory University. Mm-hmm. And he's also kind of a blogger extraordinaire. So John, thanks for coming on, dude.
No, great to see you and great to see the new digs. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
it feels like home.
It totally feels like home. I'm always trying to add more. The bobblehead collection keeps growing. Yeah. And it's feeling a little more homey for me.
Absolutely. We had both of Brandon's dogs here earlier. And so it really does feel like home.
Yeah, they're out causing trouble. I don't know what kind of trouble they're going to get into.
No question.
There's no strategy for dogs, I'm sorry to say. So before we get into our topic today, and I get to pick your brain on strategy and kind of what you've been noticing and seeing out in the world today, for those who are new to you and new to kind of you as your presence and being on the show, talk to us a little bit about kind of what you do today and how you got there.
Okay. No, that's great. So yeah, I worked in corporate America for like 25 years and got an MBA with Brandon in 2005. And at the time, I remember talking to the Career Management Center, and they asked me, hey, after consulting, what do you want to do? And at the time, I said, I really would love to teach at business school. And I distinctly remember they said at the time, you should drop out of the MBA program and get a PhD. And at the time, I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that, But long story short, I mean, you deserve some of the credit for this too, is, you and I would meet for dinner, like probably, twice a year. And then Brandon would ask me after dinner, like, are you really happy doing what you want to do? Didn't you want to teach? And with that kind of prodding, it took about 10 years, but now I'm at GBS at Emory teaching. Love it. Teach about 190 students, teach strategy and management consulting. And
these are all the undergraduates right now.
Yeah, they're undergraduates. Yep. In the fall, I'm going to be teaching the evening MBA as well. But yeah, the part of it that I love is that strategy and management consulting, it's a little bit as content, maybe 20%, but 80% is probably just teaching people, like learning how to learn and then thinking about what you're thinking. And I know that seems
I'm still thinking about that.
Yeah, it seems a little bit
when
deep.
When do you think about what you're thinking, and then you think...
I know. It's like a fortune cookie. But yeah, big fans of those. I mean, so learning about learning is, you're going to learn stuff in college, but more than anything, it's only going to be 20-30% of what you need to know. And if the world really is changing as fast as we think it is, and we're really curious people, we're going to start doing stuff that we don't really know a lot about. And so even just podcasting, for example. So you need to learn how to learn quickly, what to study, what not to study. When do you just invite somebody versus reading a book? Because there are many different ways to learn. And then thinking about thinking is just the simple idea that I think Americans generally, we're really bad about opening a diverse input that disagrees with the way we think. We're so bad at that, right? Especially once you get like mid-40s, I swear you just get locked into your opinions, right? But the idea that the first idea in your head is probably not the best one, right? And so I got a thought, let me think. What are other points of view? Okay, this is what I want to say, right? So but great fun. My wife says that she can tell that she can tell that I'm happier. The night before we have class, I get all excited about what am I going to teach, what's it going to look like. So it's been fun.
That's really cool. And the blogging part. So I threw that out there.
Yeah.
And you've been blogging for how long?
So 6 years now.
Okay.
So the first lesson is that time goes by quickly anyways. For you that are out there that are 20 years old, I know it seems like time isn't fast, but just wait. Just wait. It's like that Talking Heads song. You're going to wake up one day and you're like, how did I get here? Yeah, that's what happens when you're in your mid-40s, right? So
You made that mid-40 reference a couple of times.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, but I've been blogging. It's Consultant's Mind with an S, Consultant's Mind. It's been great. It's a great way to share. It's also a great way to catalog your thinking. And I think also my strong pushback to students and my pushback to everybody listening now is you all have opinions and you all have a point of view. My point is you should prove it. So when you go out to lunch with somebody and you say, oh, I've got all these ideas about retail and luxury goods, my pushback to you is to prove it.
What does that mean? What does it look like?
Prove it means instead of just having ideas where you talk to people over a couple of beers at a bar and you just start waving your hands talking about it, like don't be a generality.
Do something?
Yeah. Put it down on paper. I personally believe that your blog or your portfolio is your resume. Because in your resume, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of evidence that shows a lot of it is not kind of fudging the truth. And so nobody really believes that. So the point is, it's like, if you really believe and you really love luxury goods, why don't you blog about it? Why don't you read, Louis Vuitton's 10K? Why don't you take pictures? Why don't you go? Why don't you interview people? Like, turn it into like a mini business that you become an expert at.
I love that. I love that. It makes me want to ask you a question, but we'll go down a rabbit hole. I have a feeling my question's going to come back in just a minute.
Okay, give me the keyword so I can prep.
For the question?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Look at that.
I love surprises.
Look at that.
It's the best time. You get to
Look at that.
I told you I was going to have some things I wanted to ask about, that we were going to have some healthy debate on.
Dude, I love, one of my development areas is I'm trying to find more people in my life who are...
Isaac just said you have to get closer to the mic.
Oh.
You're in trouble, John.
There you go. One of my development areas, I think, is I want to invite more diverse people in my life that we can have, like, kind of, not debates, but different points of view.
Yeah.
Because I think if you were to just line up all the people that I find dear and who I spend the most time with, in some ways they're kind of similar to me. MBA, business, they work in corporate America, they're kind of like financially conservative, socially liberal, like very like me, which is reassuring, but you might argue that I'm just creating a cocoon of people like me, which I don't think is like intellectually healthy.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. So to keep us on topic, I know we talked about part of what I was so excited about is I get to kind of ask you questions about strategy, what you see in the world today, any trends you see that we need to be aware of. So talk to us.
Sure.
What are some things that either you've noticed, any kind of new bits of research or models that are out there, or just general things that you've observed?
Sure. I think two thoughts. One is I think a lot of the core strategy principles, which is, strategy is all about being really good at one thing better than the competition.
Yep.
It's about making trade-offs. You can't be all things to all people. Those are pretty timeless. But if I were to point to one thing, and I think this is true, you see this all the time, is that increasingly, if you want to start a new business or you really want to be nimble and flexible, you want to do things that have less fixed cost. What does fixed cost mean? Fixed costs are the cost that you have irrespective of how much product you produce or customers you have. So if you have a factory and you build a big factory, honestly, you got to pay for that factory whether or not you have a lot of product going out the door or no product going out the door, right? And so what does that mean? So a lot of times, especially the kind of FANG, F-A-N-G, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, if you take a look at the businesses that they do have a lot of fixed costs, but they also benefit from network effects. What does that mean? A network effect is just that it becomes more valuable the more that people join, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's true, I mean, think about any business that you have, whether it's speaking or teaching or coaching or podcasting. What can we do to take this business and make it more valuable the more people join it, right? And if you think about it that way, it really kind of pushes you to think like, let's not just think about it the way that it used to be done, but how can we make this a platform where people can participate, be a community, contribute, and actually the network becomes more valuable the more the people join. So for me, I think that would probably be kind of my big takeaway for everybody here, network effects. And what can you do with what you're doing, whether it's blogging or podcasting or putting together a portfolio, using LinkedIn, what can you do so that you create value just not one person at a time, but the more that people join your community, the more valuable it gets.
Yeah, so build a bigger network. But you also hinted at the other portion to that was keep your fixed costs low. So figure out a way you can do this that is I don't want to say
modular.
Thrifty is not the right word, but in a way that's not that allows you to scale and without worrying about cost.
Perfect. I think that's just true. I mean, did any of us really see Amazon buying Whole Foods? It's kind of a very simple example of how no matter how smart we think we are, the future is more unpredictable than we are smart. So what does that mean? That means that we need to be pretty flexible, be able to pivot and move, right? So, there's that one kind of Peter Drucker quote. You may have seen it in the PowerPoint that you and I shared recently, but, Peter Drucker, who's kind of like, the godfather of management, he said that rather than trying to I'm paraphrasing, rather than coming up with like the perfect plan for tomorrow, more than importantly, it's really important to do something today that prepares you for tomorrow.
I've seen this and heard this acronym a bunch of times in the last month, and it comes from the military, and it's called VUCA. Have you heard of VUCA?
Volatile.
So it's VUCA.
Okay.
It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
That sounds terrible. It sounds so nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Right.
So but the world has gotten more and more that way. So how do you operate in a world where it's more volatile, uncertain, greater complexity, and greater ambiguity?
And it's interesting, too, and this gets back to us being 40s again. Back in the old days, having wisdom and having knowledge and experience was so useful, right? It had its own value. So the older you got, the more valuable you got, right? But it seems like in a VUCA type of world, it's more around being able to learn quickly, tap into your network quickly, assemble teams, disassemble teams, break down problems. And honestly, that doesn't sound like the kind of thing that wise, old, experienced people would necessarily be good at.
Yeah. That part's true.
That
part's true.
So on some level, irrespective of your chronological age, it sounds like how can you be that type of curious learner?
I think that's true. And I think there's a good lesson in that. I would also say that I personally believe to a certain degree, youth is overrated right now in the workplace, to a certain degree. So while you have more nimbleness and innovation and entrepreneurship, some of the things that get lost are how do you deal with something that's really sensitive? Because you learn that over time by either screwing it up at some point in your career and life or watching someone else screw it up and be like, I better not handle it that way.
No question.
But also building those critical networks.
Love it.
And that also happens over time. I've been working with this group of people for 15, 20 years, and I'm really well networked, and they trust me. And so you have more levers to pull from a network perspective that you might not have at 25.
I love that.
So I think that both sides are valuable, but sometimes people lose sight of the value of I hate to use the word older, more mature, seasoned,
weathered,
seasoned worker.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that there is, you and I were talking that, unemployment right now is at I think a 17-year low.
Yeah.
So what that means is there's a bit of a talent shortage in a way. And so, like you said, maybe youth is kind of overrated just a little bit because they are scrambling for people.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go into break, and when we come out of break, I have something else that I want to tease up. Yes, exactly. John's hitting his fist together because there's something he and I had dinner this week, and we disagree on a fundamental level. So I told him, hold that. We'll save that for the show. So you're going to get to hear us have a little bit of a healthy debate.
World Cup special. Yeah.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, this is Brandon. I hope your 2018 is everything you'd hoped it would be. That said, we could all use a tune-up. Go to my site, theworkplacetherapist.com, www.theworkplacetherapist, all one word, .com, for a library of resources for you. You can find past shows, blog posts on navigating workplace dysfunction, and even my TED Talk on the contagiousness of emotions in the workplace. And that's not all. There are the Workplace Happiness Workbooks to help you find happiness in your job, and even a tab to Ask the Therapist, where you can ask me anything on your mind. We all need a tune-up once in a while. Get yours today. All right, welcome back to the Brandon Smith Show. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and today I've got my great friend and colleague, John Kim, talking to us about strategy and how can we be more strategic in 2018. And so going into the break, we were talking about unemployment being at a record low, and this naturally made me think about our conversation at dinner last night.
Yep.
And you threw out the first volley.
Publicly.
And said, I disagree with you on this point. What was it?
I think one thing that you've said, I think more than once, is that working for a Fortune 500 or a large company is one of the most dangerous career things you can do.
I did say that.
Yes.
I would say that again today.
And the idea being, I think it's true that a lot of big companies honestly aren't nimble enough to manage what's going on, right? Before the break, we talked about VUCA, the world being very volatile. And I kind of disagree with that. And my argument would be, no, I completely agree that we should all take extreme ownership of our careers and we should constantly be adding value. Treat your manager at work like a customer. Buy that. But I would hesitate to recommend that people, stop their W-2 job where they're still learning good stuff, working with people that they like, to be 1099 and then later on find out that their skills aren't adequate to feed their children.
Oh, feed their children. He ends on feed their children, folks. That's like the stinger.
Feed the children.
Feed the children. And then he whispers it in this very Sarah McLachlan kind of way. Feed the children. Okay, so, and my point is, I'm a big fan of 1099.
Yep.
I like that because I think that it gives people ironically enough, it gives people greater job security because you're having it's a diversified portfolio of income streams when you do it right versus going all in. So people who are employed, W-2, you got a job, you have all your income or zero. It's an all or none thing. And if you work for a Fortune 500 company, they have so much pressure for quarterly earnings, for these kind of quiet investors sitting from their house, investing and expecting returns, not really caring about the business or the people, frankly.
Right.
And so the only way they're going to hit the market, and there's not enough leadership courage amongst the C-level of most Fortune 500 companies. So they're neither strategic nor courageous. So they just bend over to those investors and ultimately result in cutting costs by laying people off. So I love 1099. But there's something else that you said over dinner, which I also want to build on. And you said, you don't think everyone is kind of cut out for that lifestyle.
So two parts to that. I think it's competence and confidence. There's two parts. So one is 1099, if you are both competent, in other words, the skills you bring to the market, they're willing to pay you for, and confident. You're kind of wired to hunt that thing, to be a little bit restless, to have that kind of immigrant mindset of where I need to grow this thing. I think if you have those two things, that's great. I would argue that quite a few people haven't invested enough in their skill set to be competent and get market rates for. In other words, they're actually being overpaid in corporate America, which is dangerous. Right?
Overpaid, wow.
I know,
fair.
Right? They're being a little overpaid with their W-2 job because honestly, they haven't kind of sharpened the knife enough. They should, but maybe it's premature. And then two, I don't know. I think a lot of people maybe are like me a little bit and a little bit risk averse. And so what's your counsel for that?
Well, I'm going to say something controversial. Probably some people are not going to like this. But I honestly believe for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, a W-2 job makes you lazy.
Okay, controversial. Controversial.
Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it makes you lazy. It makes you lazy because you're not thinking about where you are strategically in the marketplace. You're thinking about maybe pleasing your boss, maybe, but you rest on the fact you get paid this predictable amount, and that does not incent or encourage or keep you hungry.
I totally agree.
And so there's something to be said for staying hungry, because it makes you kind of think about how could I be doing this differently? And the other thing about 1099 that I love, and you did hit on this, but I see this as a major fundamental problem with people who are W-2. When you're 1099, you view everyone as a customer. Everyone's a customer because it trains you that way. So 1099, for those who aren't familiar with the terminology, we're talking about being a contractor. You've got lots of customers. You sell widgets, or you make something out of it, or you have an Etsy shop, or you do professional services, and it treats you to view everyone as a current or future or past customer. But when you're W-2, you don't view your boss as a customer. You don't view your peers as a customer. You don't view your direct reports as a customer.
Right.
You label them different ways, and that mindset shift messes people up.
Completely agree. Just to reiterate what he said, W-2 makes you just a little bit lazier. I think that's true. I think that's true. And the idea of 1099 really forces you to think about people as customers. I think that's true too. Yeah. So then the question becomes, okay.
So for all of you who hate my comment, you can email me directly at john.kim@emory.edu. Okay.
The problem is that's the email address of a different professor. So we'll see how that lands. So no, I think you and I agree. I think people to really to fulfill and to really get the most out of the skills and the gifts that they have, and to really see everyone as a customer, as well as to really be forward-thinking, aggressive, and curious. 1099, great. So how do you fill that gap between here and here? Because I think we do agree that that's a better vision. But my question is, I think a lot of people lack the competence and the confidence to do that.
And I want to go back to that, because I think you made a really good point that if I'm a listener right now, and I am working for an employer, which most folks probably listening are, then they would say, all right, fine, I get it. But how can I sharpen my tool? How can I think tools? How can I think more strategically? How do I strengthen my competence? Because your argument was, it's one thing to have the mindset and be willing to take that leap.
Right.
And there's ways to massage that and make it more comfortable.
Yep.
But then if you're not competent.
How do you test that even? How do you know how competent you are even?
So what advice would you give to folks on how can they assess that? How can they sharpen their tools, keep themselves relevant? Yeah,
no, I love that. I think first is that you need to do less better, which also sounds like a fortune cookie. But I think that the idea is that one reason that so many companies lack a strategy and individuals lack a strategy is that we're just constantly distracted by stuff. And, we just become walking generalities, right? I'm a little good at PowerPoint. I'm a little good at presenting. I'm a little good at Excel, and I'm a little good at negotiation. No, like literally, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're in the top 5% of the world at, right? So if the market was going to pay you $250,000 a year to do this one thing 3 times a day, what would it be, right? And so not that you're that good now, but are you willing to really dedicate yourself to that pursuit and that craft 2 or 3 times a day for the next 3 years to really get wicked good at?
Yeah. Okay, so when you said that, immediately made me think of something else that can also help people. So in addition to thinking about that competency, that thing that you're wicked good at, think about what marketplace you can also thrive in.
I love it.
Because, also on that slide deck that's going through, you had a slide on blue oceans.
Yep.
The red versus blue oceans.
Yep.
And if you're not familiar with the book, a great strategy book. It's been out for a while now.
Yep.
But the premise is pretty simple. Red oceans, tons of competition. Everyone wants to be there. Blue oceans, it's either novel, you're creating something, or there's not a lot of players and you can kind of dominate.
Love it.
So for example, you get a lot of people that say, oh, I want to go work for this company because they're super shiny, or I want to be in this industry. I want to be in fashion, or I want to be in sports. And that's going to be a really competitive marketplace. Right. Or you could say, I'm going to be in this really unsexy marketplace, but it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
And that could be an opportunity to kind of give you a longer horizon and really thrive. You're the best in this weird, peculiar industry. in this particular function.
Love
but
it.
if you were over in a red ocean, you might not even be in the top 100.
I love it. There was a Deloitte partner that I remember back in the day who said that whenever they bid for business, they try not to fight a fair fight, which seems
interesting.
Which seems like very un-American. Like, no, we're all about Rocky and the fair fighting. What are you talking about, right? No, his point is, it's like if you're approaching a customer or a market situation or an opportunity, and literally you're just one of 5 vendors, why even do that? Right? So the idea is like, yeah, a smart person's going to go where it's a perfect fit with what they do with the market need, right? Why not spend a little time, extra time thinking about what's really needed, and it's a perfect fit. One other kind of recommendation, this is an oldie goldie. It's a book called Positioning. It's a marketing strategy book, and it's probably like 30 or 40 years old, right? So you don't have to buy the book. Just
Al Reese? No.
Yes, Al Reese, exactly,
okay.
Right.
Points for me.
Points for him.
Points for me, folks.
You can go to Amazon reviews and just read 3 or 4 reviews, and you'll get the point. But one thing I love about what he says is that if you're selling a product or a service, it's less about you trying to shout at the customer louder. More importantly, what's already in the customer's mind, and what do they already need that you can stitch together to what you already have. So it's like this whole Star Trek reverse engineering, right? Instead of for me to try to tell you pen, silver, pen, it's like, he loves the color silver. This is exactly the person I need to sell this pen to. So work backwards from the customer, I think is just a brilliant idea, right?
Okay, so we're getting close on time. Are there any kind of final points you want to make sure we hit?
I think one thing that's really changed my mind around strategy, as you know how they say you don't learn something until you try to teach it?
Yeah.
And so, teaching strategy over the last 3 semesters, it's made me really acutely aware of the fact that strategy, they talk about competitive advantage and beating your competition, but I think more than that, it's about creating massive value, right? So who is your perfect customer, and what are you wicked good at, and how can you create massive amounts of value that, honestly, they'd be stupid not to choose you, right? And so then it becomes less about the competition and more about you. And what you can do, your point of view, and your ability to really just like love on your customer.
Okay, so let me take that and let me reframe it for someone who works in a job for an employer.
Yeah.
And if I reframe that, I would say, know what value you bring to the organization, measure it, and know you're worth what they're paying you, and you can prove that, versus trying really, really hard to please your boss or worry about the person to your left and right. I think those are important stakeholders to be aware of. Don't ignore them.
Sure.
But I think rather than I made her happy, think more about what's the value I'm bringing, and know that value.
I think that's great. It's you measure it. You focus on yourself. Those are all really great things. Super great things. I think it also makes me, I've been watching World Cup a lot nowadays, and I think maybe this is a good theme for us to think about too. Is that even at your W-2 job, you think you're only playing one game? That's not true. You're playing that one game in marketing. Yeah, I'm a marketing, analyst doing this marketing thing. That's one game of many games that you're playing.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the games could be, so what's my next career going to be? How am I going to,
And it goes back to then the point you made around networking, making sure you're building that network. And we've talked about networking, and this is not a new concept for folks, but they get so wound up and focused in their little bubble, they don't network enough. And so when you network, what you're really doing is you're looking at other possible customers that you could be serving and working with. And so one of the really empowering things for me that I would say is when I went 1099, I don't have a lot of the horror stories that a lot of the people I work with do around having a crazy boss or a demanding boss who makes their life horrible.
Right.
Partly because we have my relationship with my customers tends to be more based on mutual respect.
Love it.
But the other part is I can fire a boss. I can fire one of my customers, and I've done it before.
Right.
I'm like, no. I'm not going to work for you because you're crazy town, and I don't need that in my life. But it's okay because they're not my only boss.
Love it.
I have 50.
Right.
So I can fire them and then pick up another one.
Love it.
And so even if you are employed at a W-2 kind of job and you only have one quote unquote boss, it's okay to look for another one. Look for other potential customers so you have that confidence to say, working for you does not fit for my life. I'm going to go fire you and I'm going to go work for this person over there.
And yeah, even within the company is, I guess, what you're saying, right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think some of the most valuable roles that you can have in a company is to be somebody who breaks down silos, because marketing never talks to sales, who never talks to operations, who never talks to finance.
Yep. And that's a way of saying, I'm bringing this kind of value. So it's sharing your identity more on the value that you're bringing rather than serving someone who may not be rational.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And Lord knows that your current boss does not necessarily mean that they're going to be your boss a year from now. So you need to place your bets. You never put
true.
all your chips on one number on roulette. That'd be silly.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So John, I always ask all my guests this question. What's one life hack for us that we can help our lives be a little less dysfunctional, whether personally or professionally?
So my life hack would be that whenever you have lunch with somebody, coffee with somebody, or even have some kind of meeting, end with this question. And I don't mean this in a really over-calculating way, but just ask the question, what can I do to help you? Right? And the point being is, one is you want to demonstrate to them that, hey, you meeting me is good for you. Number two is it's kind of brainstorming outside the scope of this particular meeting that we had on this particular thing. And then three, it's kind of interesting when you start getting feedback from your quote-unquote customer or friends or network or colleagues, and they said, oh, it'd be great if you could help me do this research. It'd be great if you could help me with this Excel. You may find that you can't do that. And it's a way for you to identify different ways to add value to other people. So net, be helpful. Networking is all around about finding ways to be helpful to somebody else. And so kind of end the conversation. So, hey, Brandon, that's great. Love meeting you. I look forward to meeting you next month. Anything I can do to help you between now and then.
I love it, dude. That's fantastic. So if people want to learn more about you and what you're up to, where can they go?
Yeah, you can go to consultantsmind.com, consultant and then consultantsmind.com. My contact information is there too, and I blog about twice a week.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You've become a blogging champ.
It's fun.
I'm impressed. Well, thanks, man. You are an absolute gift, as always. I'm so thrilled to have you on the show and know that I'll have you again and look for more opportunities for us to disagree.
Yeah, we'll do it.
It's always good. And thank you for listening and joining us on the show. I hope this was helpful to you. And until our next show, naturally, you can follow us on Twitter at the WP Therapist for Workplace Therapist, iTunes, thebrandonsmithshow.com. You're probably listening to that right now. And of course, my website, www.theworkplacetherapist.com, where there's a ton of resources there that I have kind of curated over the years just for you. All free stuff, just to help you make your life a little bit healthier. So until our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.